Welcome to our Labcafé online. Thanks a lot that so many people are interested in this beautiful topic. My name is Alexander Biller, and I'm looking forward to share a lot of inspiration with you. Our topic today, well-being labs, paradigm change for great job satisfaction. Laboratory buildings are normally trimmed for high performance, energy efficiency, with all the technology, process optimization and regulations to comply with, the feel-good atmosphere usually falls by the wayside. Is there another way? Together with our experts, we will look behind the scenes to discover how technology and workplace experience can be brought together. Learn more about best practice and how to increase job satisfaction, cultivate collaboration, and boost innovation with great lab environments. And we have really fantastic speaker today. Impulse number one is about what possibilities do we have to create well-being lab facilities. From Norbert Schachtner, he's Director Science, Education and Technology from HDR Germany. And Norbert is an architect with more than 25 years experience, especially with lab buildings. He brings an impressive balance of complex facility programming and planning expertise, design sensitivity, and business acumen to his role. Norbert, it's an honor that you are here to share projects of the future from HDR with us. Impulse number two is focusing on the question, why should we transform our lab space into a favorite place? From Dr. Lena Reis, she is head of health and well-being from Dres and Sommer. Lena's goal is the rehumanization of real estate, processes and organizations, improving the health and well-being of people. Lena, I'm so happy that you're on board to show us a completely new way of well-being scoring, benchmarking and best practice examples. Impulse number three, how can we develop a lab environment which is loved by the users? From Dr. Devi Schönbeck, she's Vice President Sales from Steelcase. And Devi, it's an absolutely enthusiastic workplace specialist creating places which foster collaboration, concentration, and creativity. Devi, I'm so excited that you're part of our event, and I'm looking forward to cool concept studies, how to combine lab areas and office areas in a completely new way. At the end, we have a Q&A session. So if you have questions, please write it in the chat and we can answer them. So I would say, let's start, take a good cup of coffee and be inspired by wonderful well-being concepts for better job satisfaction. Norbert, it's your turn.
Thank you. Good morning to all our listeners in Europe. Good morning to all across the ocean, and good evening to all people who are listening from Asia or from overseas. First of all, I want to give you a short overview about HDR, who we are, what we do, and last but not least, why we are doing that. HDR is a global network of more than 10,000 engineers and architects who are working on all fields of built environments. I think there are more than hundreds or more than 1,000 ways of contributing to a better environment, like not eating any meat, not using cars, and a lot of other things which can be good to contribute for a good future. But the overall goal of HDR is making the world a better place to be. We are trying that to achieve with sustainable, intelligent, and I would say last but not least, beautiful buildings for our communities. One thing which is very remarkable for us is that we are one of the biggest companies on the world which are in 100% employee ownership. That means that we don't have any investors behind, maybe who are controlling our destiny or saying to us what we have to do. But let's go to the first project. In the following, I will show you two examples of science buildings, each one completely different, where we try to create spaces for science, I would say, which allow well-being in labs. This is not very easy. So first one is the FCI, the Frankfurt Cancer Institute, or the Frankfurt University Hospital. This is how we worked around 130 years ago. On the left-hand side, you see a lonesome scientist in his lab. In the middle, this is a work environment, I would say, in the middle of the 90s, white, gray, cold, and nothing to be a well-being lab. And on the right-hand side, you see someone who has changed his work environment. He is sitting on the rack of his horse and working in lab 2, I would say, due to the fact that I think we are spending much more time in labs and offices than with our family at home. So there could be only one solution for us. Work should also be fun. This is Frankfurt. Where the circle lies, you can see the Frankfurt University Hospital campus. This is the site, surrounded by a lot of, I would say, difficult buildings. A lot of them are under monument protection. And in the middle, there's a kind of remaining space, the plot, not very easy to build, a little bit complicated and different. And we thought that the right answer to this difficult plot will be a square. But at the end, we thought it could be much more beautiful for the building and for the volume if the surrounding buildings are creating the volume too. And so a new volume was created. Afterwards, we had to define the organizational or structuring idea. So something very, very easy. This is hard and soft. The hardcore contains all lab functions, which is marked in gray, and the space around in blue contains all spaces or areas for launching, for communication and interdisciplinary exchange. We made a pass-through and calls it knowledge track. If someone has ever played with his Carrera, then he would remind that it was a knowledge track. And there, I would say, a very easy organization model was created with the lab in the middle, with a kind of maximum of transparencies between the lab space and the space around for communication, for meeting, for coffee, and so on. This is the volume, 3 floors, and in the middle, the hard core with all the lab functions, staircases, vertical shaft elements. The facade reacts with their different heights on different and changing conditions in the inside of the building to enable a maximum of flexibility and outlook to the wonderful park around there. Interior concept. I think 10 or 15 years ago, an interior concept for a lab building was unthinkable. Everything was white, gray, and washable. No one did spend any idea for well-being in a lab. Everything was only functionality, 100%. But when we are talking about a work environment where the people have fun or have a kind of well-being feeling, then I think an interior concept would be absolutely necessary. We were defining 3 different, I would say, worlds. The first one is the knowledge space on the left-hand side, with warm and soft materials, inspiring materials for the office area in the middle, and gray and strong materials for the lab space. The entrance hall is something absolutely special because it is the first picture you saw when you are opening the door to the building. So it should be extremely natural. And last but not least, beautiful, I would say. With this mood board, we are trying to test if all the materials and colors are matching together. This is necessary because sometimes we have some very exciting colors, like you see the pink colors on the right-hand side. This is nothing very common for a lab building. So we have to test if everything is matching together. But with our Revit model, we are testing that in 3D. You see that? Then we can cover all the surfaces with the selected materials. And last but not least, this is the floor plan of one of the 3 floors of the knowledge space. These are different open spaces for meeting, for communication. You see a kitchen there, you see a sofa, you see a high table for smaller meetings, and the write-up area, the smaller write-up area on the top and on the upper side of the floor plan. These were some examples we were testing from realized buildings. And at the end, we were trying to render all the situation around the lab space with a Revit model. We had a lighting concept. This is necessary to feel good. I think it's absolutely important that the lighting concept for the lab space is different to the lighting concept of the office space and for the meeting areas. These were the first renderings. In the background, you see the transparent partition walls of the lab space. Here we are in the middle. On the left-hand side, the lab. On the right-hand side, a few smaller office rooms. Yeah, this was the FVI by now, the Frankfurt Cancer Center. I hope that this will be realized very soon. The second one is something absolutely different. The FCI was a biomedical research facility with biomedical research labs, but the IKS is something where the scientists are working theoretically on artificial intelligence, on software solution, on something like that. See, IKS is the Fraunhofer Institute for Cognitive System. It is located in the campus of the Technical University in Munich, north of Munich, which is called, the location is called Garching, where more than 10,000 students and scientists are working together on this campus. A part of this campus is reserved for the science building of the Fraunhofer University. You see 5 buildings from the Fraunhofer University in the middle of the picture. And the idea behind this building is a simple idea too. Outside, it's a neutral square that has to do with that all buildings around you can see there are squares too. So I think it was absolutely logical or necessary that our building has the same approach to outside. It is a square, but inside, a rotating inner void is creating an absolutely interesting inner space. You see that? The inner void is always rotating with 90 degrees in every floor, and so a 3-dimensional space is created. This was the first rendering we have done in the competitions. That was 2 years ago, which has shown our initial idea of our organization of the building. I think this is not a building or a completely normal building with 4 floors, 8 corridors, 200 doors, 32 departments. Now, this building is one single space for working, communicating, and well-being. And the core element, like staircases, you see these elements are marked in gray, are swimming in this kind of, I would say, this is a kind of soup of a building, this floor plan. This institute has not so much to do with traditional ways of organizing or structuring a building with corridors and fire protection walls and doors and so on. This was a tries. It was an attempt to achieve the free flow of thoughts, of technology and knowledge in one house, I would say. Also, the building has I would say, an absolutely innovative approach. We didn't want to miss any traditional issues like you see a classic Bavarian beer garden on the left-hand side, or a kind of, I would say, a loft atmosphere maybe at a startup company. So the interior concept shows the full range of raw timber. You can see on the left side to coated metal panels on the right-hand side. These were the example, absolutely different. With these three different areas in this building, labs, office, and communication, we had created three different interior design worlds in one building. Labs, the science-based, are designed in a dark, smooth, and a little bit cold interior. The offices and workplaces in warm, bright, and I would say a little bit inspiring atmosphere. And the launching, communication, and meeting area in colorful, unique, and high quality. So with these three different approaches in interior design, I think we have created or integrated three different interior worlds in one building. This is an example we have found in the internet, how we can organize some meeting boxes, how they can look like, something very different to the meeting rooms we know from other buildings. And at the end, I think we have created an open, warm, and I would say inspiring atmosphere, a place for living, a place for well-being. That was the word from Alexander Biller, well-being in labs. And last but not least, I would say nice as at home. This was the IKS, the Fraunhofer Institute for Cognitive System, north of Munich. And this was HDR. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Norbert. And thanks a lot for these beautiful pictures, ideas, and impressions from these projects. If I had a choice, I want to work there. It's really great. So I would say I directly hand over to Lena. Lena, it's your turn.
Well, hi all. Thank you very much, Alexander. I'm happy to be here. My name is Lena Reis, as you already know. First, I would really like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about the very important issue, health and well-being, and how this is influenced by architecture parameters, hard facts. And so I will start the presentation in a second. Yeah, so there's a reason why I chose this picture, because I actually feel very well when I just see it. And so I feel comfortable to tell you a little bit more about this issue. So what we're actually talking about is health and well, and that is actually the only way to be. That is our mission statement, and I like to give you a little bit more information about what we understand of this topic, how we understand this. But first, I like to give you a little bit more information about my person. I'm actually an architect and studied in Munich and did my PhD at the Department of Urban Health and Development. And there, during my PhD, I developed a methodology to measure quality of space and the influence of humans' well-being. And with this methodology, I got self-employed 3 years ago and advised companies to increase their well-being to get a higher revenue or higher productivity of employees. And since October last year, I've been working at Dres und Sommer to grow up this business model, or to develop this business model and to get it more into every asset, not just the laboratories. Just a small information beside, we are now part of the ULI Health Leader Network, what is very interesting because it came from the ULI US, America, and it is network of about 30 international experts, and we are all improving health, well-being, and social equity. And we are doing webinars, and we're doing podcasts and conferences, so we can learn from each other, and the outcomes will be very interesting. So the question was, why should we transform our lab space into favorite place? And actually, that is a rhetorical question, because isn't it true that all of us, including you guys, know the answer? Because when you just think about your own surroundings, at what moment you will not transform your space around in your favorite place? So just think about your home. When is you actually do this the whole time during the whole day to get your space around to your favorite place? You even switch your home base if you're not feeling well. So why shouldn't you transform your lab space or your working space or whatever space into your favorite place? So what we do is actually to increase the customers or the users' health and well-being, and we do this evidence-based and measurable. How I will give you some short informations about how we do this. How we do this is we have three, clusters of the user. You have the well-being, you have the health, and you have the environment. All of these three parts are subdivided in sub-parameters, about 67 sub-parameters. And if you analyze these parameters, which are all influencing the users in well-being and health, you can get tailored recommendations of action on your own building. And that has as a result or aim or goal, whatever, to get a higher quality, a higher revenue, and a higher productivity of your employees as well as of your own company. Yeah. And how do we do this? We bring two things together. We have the psychology side and the architecture side, and we analyze the mind of users. We are analyzing the mind, and we analyze the subject, the object means the building. And these two things combining, you can combine this, you will get informations about how your architecture is influencing your users' health and well-being. How we do this, there are just some short informations about the parameters we are working on or we are analyzing. You have the physical, mental, and social health on the right side, which is combined in the topic health. And you have on the left side the well-being clusters, like the building. This is the objective layer, kind of a layer. You can do this, you can top every layer after or on top on the other, and then you can see where are some very big issues you have to work on. So the first thing is the building, where we are doing well-being scoring. We developed that through my PhD and as well through the actually state-of-the-art of the research parts, where all parameters included influencing human well-being regarding the architecture. We have the human scoring, means this objective parameters will be evaluated by the humans. And afterwards, we are actually doing sometimes stress measurements in humans. Means sometimes your mind is not telling you the truth, okay? Sometimes your body tell you the truth and tell you what is actually really the stressor of a process, organization, or also a building. Combining all these together, you get this recommended course of action. Here, you can see just some parameters or clusters we are analyzing and measuring. There's the air, you know the hard facts. You also know about the soft facts. It's about privacy and individuality. You actually have at your home. Yeah, so when you work remote, why are you feeling well when you're working around remote? There are some issues influencing your well-being, and we have to analyze these issues. There's the materials, you know about how if you touch a timber construction, you're feeling kind of well, okay? Even Do you feel the same when you have a hard rejecting metal material? So these are the questions you have to ask for the users, and you have to think about what could be the results, or what are the results, and you have to react to that, or to act. You have the orientation thing. You also have the community, like the social health thing, the nature, and also light, and 9 other parameters we are actually including in the well-being scoring. So the goal is to increase the performance of the workers, and in order to set up the laboratory more efficiently. That is just one goal. There are many others as well. It's just when you increase well-being, that is really good for your employees, also for any customer. The challenge is to build a workplace which employees bring them more motivation, and to work in a satisfied way. And there are different causes: the workplace, the process, the organization, and the humans. And all them together, we can evidence-base this. We can get evidence-based information or facts and figures, and give you the recommendation for action. And in preparation to this presentation, that is that is the way we are doing this, okay? We're doing a qualitative interview. We ask the employees, how are you feeling with your surrounding at the moment? Here, now I'm standing here. How are you feeling in the year 2022? And what are the issues or the topics you think they're disturbing you in your work? What would you love to get better in your surrounding? And here you can see some statements. There are some like, okay, when I work in the lab, I always have to be focused and concentrated, which is very exhausting in the long run. In addition, we still stand and walk a lot, so I would like to have a place to relax. The other one also says, there are no retreats. If you don't get along with your colleagues, there's already a problem, because they are all large and open rooms and very bright. So the light is a big topic. You can change, or you can implement in your well-being labs. And many other statements they told me, and the very detailed things, or the different rooms we got out of these interviews are these. You can see over here. We have the labs, the office, the meeting room, and the break room. That is not a new information for you, but if you have these 4 types of rooms, you should think about which one could you transform to a favorite place, and which one is maybe not allowed to transform in a well-being place because of regulations or guidelines or whatever. But then you have to think about these 16 parameters influencing well-being in architecture. Which one can you implement in the lab room? Which one can you implement in office, meeting room, and break room? So that are the questions you should answer. And also in order to this, or in the process, you need to think about the balancing stimulation. So if you not can have that well-being topics in laboratory, think about if you can have it more in the meeting room, recovery, or the break room. And it's all about the stimulation in the right way and right balancing. And I will take you with me to a short journey afterwards. But first, I like to show you this stimulation in 1 or 2 examples I found in the internet. And also Norbert, there's one you already shown us. So you have already shown us. So it's really interesting what you told us and informations about. You can see the Frankfurt Cancer Institute and the German Cancer Research Center in Heidelberg. And actually, when we did this research, we didn't find many examples. And actually, that itself is a result, okay? That you can't find in the first step many examples of well-being in labs shows you there is a reason to transform this, to switch that, to make a change, okay? And here you can see some examples, and some parameters are positive designed, like you have a little color design here on the left for a private room and room concept. And you have the community areas, how Norbert told you before, and a little bit nature, and you have a kind of balancing stimulation. But now I want to ask you, how would you feel when you think about there should be, or there could be an atrium, a big atrium in the middle of the room, and you can see there a tree inside. And in the best way, you can go outside. You can feel if it's hot or if it's cold or it's rainy. You can see that. So if it's windy, or you can see the falling leaves of the tree, and that just in the middle of your whole working place and from every spot. So I'm pretty sure that would be an amazing spot, and actually you are feeling well when you are just have this in your mind. So there are many aspects you should add to this actually to that moment of labs or well-being labs at the moment. So I actually want to ask you, where do you feel most well? Or what I also say is, where do you feel most home? Because at home you feel well. So why don't you take your home with you to every place you want to be? And I ask me that as well. And that is why I like to take you with me to my favorite place and moment. And that is my favorite place. And it's in Italy, I'm pretty sure you know that. And I give you a short story about my feelings. So I sit on a terrace just in front of a small bungalow, and it's not very big. It's about 40 or 50 square meters big. And it's hot, and it's actually real hot. And I smell the scent of eucalyptus, and I hear the chirping of the chirping of crickets. You know, it's very loud over there. And if you ask me, if I would stay about 8 hours there or just the whole year, I would say no. Yes, but I loved the moment because it is another stimulation. It is something different. I can switch to that in my mind, and I love to be there. And yeah, so the balancing stimulation is the key in this topic. And I ask you, how can we bring that into laboratories? How can we bring that feeling in laboratories, and how can you implement this? And what triggers that feeling? And that is actually what we analyze. Means you should analyze your users, your requirements, not just in hard facts, in soft facts. You should analyze your employees' social and mental health, and get them and increase the health and the well-being, get all together for a favorite place. And it's called the halo effect. You know that maybe it shows you if you are feeling well in a room or in a part of space, and you get to another space, you think maybe from the same company, okay? So you take the halo effect with you, means you take the feeling with you and transport it to another building from this company. So you can have a very good image with that, and you can take it with you and use it. And just to close up is, what are actually the outputs of a favorite place? And there are many hard facts, okay? I show you there when they all come together to one growing up tree. So you have, when you're doing these things, you have flexibility, readiness, you have readiness for change. You also have a better identification with the company. You have a higher job performance. You have a willingness to perform, and you have a low fluctuation. And two another things are higher motivation and a higher satisfaction. And so the soft facts are, why should we transform our lab space into a favorites place? And that is something I'm pretty sure I don't have to ask you this, because this is, again, a rhetorical question. And I'm pretty sure that I know your answer. And yeah, so if you are not thinking of bringing health and well-being into labs yet, then wake up and get it to your labs. And if you need any more information about, it's like, just give me a call or email. I just want to end up and close up the presentation with these informations. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks a lot for your presentation, Lena. And thanks a lot for all this fantastic insights about well-being, stimulation and scoring, and also this beautiful example. I would say it's time to change the labs. And we have so many possibilities to do that with different stimulation, with colors, with feelings, with air, with all the things. So these are great examples. And I would say now I will directly hand over to Debbie, the third impulse.
Yes, hello everyone. Also from my side, I hope you still have some more energy for the third speech. Thanks for also the time discipline of my precedent speakers. That's great. I'll try to do the same. So let me try first to share the presentation. So in the remaining 20 minutes, I would like to share some thoughts on how can we develop a lab environment which is loved by the user. And I would like to do that in two sections. In the first section, I would like to share some general findings of our research, where we are, have just released a new global report. So sort of the theoretical part, and then in the second part, I would like to actually share some very concrete examples, some design concepts with you on how those laboratories might look like. So a word about Steelcase to give some background. Steelcase is the market leader in providing work environments. So as such, we are circling our minds around work environments where people feel well, where people love to come to, and where also people can bring out their best work. So how can space really support the user in doing their work? And that's why we think a lot about the user and have a user-centered design approach. So in terms of that, we also have a Workspace Futures team that is doing thorough global research based all over the globe. As market leaders, of course, we need to anticipate what are the changes in how we do work, what is then also the changes in behaviors and needs from workers, and how does that then in the end influence the workplace, the environment for the workers. So this is where our strong point is. We really want to be sort of the scientists of the industry. And that's why I also want to share some results, some key findings of our latest research. Actually, I'm also joining you here from Munich in Germany, where we have our EMEA hub and where we also have parts of our product development and of course also our main location in EMEA, and where we also have parts of this Workspace Futures team in order to be able to anticipate sort of the future of work. So now I would like to show you some findings of the research that we conducted since the beginning of March in 2020, when COVID hit, because we want to really deeply understand what are the user needs, what are the needs of people who go to work, and especially like how have those needs changed over the period of time. Thereby we did 12 primary studies. We actually got in touch with 57,000 users. So it's really a very solid foundation on the messages that we found in that. That research was conducted over 11 countries, and we did actually analyze 27,000 floor plans with clients and customers who come to us and show us their floor plans and get an evaluation by that. So before I dive into that, maybe as a framework, what do we understand as well-being? We believe that a place matters, that it has a strong impact on the employee. So we really see place and technology as like a strategic resource to support the people that we find are the key assets of any organization. And when you think about well-being, how do we define that? As also being a furniture manufacturer, you might think that we will focus on the physical well-being, and that's also a very important one. And we heard a lot during the COVID times where people were working from home and did not have an environment where they could physically feel well, you know, working at a kitchen table, not having an ergonomic chair, but also some people really working from their bed, which I thought was quite astonishing that there's actually quite a large amount of people who did that. So that's definitely an important aspect, but then of course we do have a broader understanding of well-being, also the cognitive well-being and the emotional well-being, meaning we need to think about the complete environment. How do we provide a workspace where people can really focus, have little distraction, and where they also sort of feel connected to their environment and like to go to the workplace. So yeah, in order to come up with the right spatial solutions, we were thinking about who is actually the user and what were the very different experiences that they had working from home, because that gives us the clue on what they will expect when they return to their workplace. And I think these findings can be generalized, whether it's a classic office space or whether it's a laboratory. I think those are general findings that we find over all branches, but also over all sizes of organizations. So we came up or sort of defined from the interviews and the surveys that we did 5 personas that we found to be the key ones. I don't want to go into all of these, but just to give you, to highlight some, you know, talking, for example, on the left side, the isolated zoomer. That's a person who lives alone, maybe in a larger city, in an apartment, and where work also really structures the daily life, you know, where you go to work. And when you think about that person that just felt isolated during the time where we all were sort of sitting at home, this person wants to come to the workplace to socialize again. They want to have a coffee with their colleagues. They want to exchange. While, for example, the second one, the autonomy seeker, is really someone who totally enjoyed the freedom, who can now very flexibly plan their workday, can go running during the afternoon and then work a little longer. So they really enjoy this freedom and the choice they have. When you now look at maybe the fourth one, overworked caretaker, you know, a lot of people, including myself, did this homeschooling thing. And those people, when they return to the office now, they actually also want to find an environment where they're able to focus. So you can already see that there is no one size fits all, but you really have to address all these different and individual needs when you plan for the return to the workplace. We also find that, you know, in the beginning, there were some concepts saying, well, that's great. Now all the focus work will happen at home. And then when we come to the workplace, you know, only the things that we need to collaborate will take place. But in fact, when you look at the curve, our brains and our bodies in terms of well-being are not wired to focus 8 hours in a row and then to brainstorm 8 hours in a row on the second day. So we sort of need to balance that out. And that's why we need to create a diverse, what we call ecosystem. And what we also saw in the project that Norbert showed, you know, where you have different settings, different areas where you can do different things. And this is what we call the concept of choice and control. So based on the activity that you're doing, but also maybe based on the mood you're in, you know, you can actually choose the work environment, and that is something that the workplace needs to offer. So maybe the 5 highlights when you look at the research, the global report, and I'm happy to share the latest update. We just released an update because we said this report is an ongoing one. The situation is changing week over week. That's why we do gradual updates of this report, and we just released a new edition 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'm happy to share the link in the chat so you can download it. But what we found really over this global report in the 7 different countries, these were the top 5 demands that employees have when they return to the workplace. And the first one being safety. Not surprisingly, we've all gone through masks and social distancing, so people want to be safe at the workplace, and they also want to feel safe. It's also an emotional way to perceive safety. Then belonging. People want to be part of a bigger idea, of a bigger organization, of a bigger community. So providing the sense of belonging is a key target in space. Third one, productivity. In the end, you know, if I make the effort to come to the workplace, I do expect a better environment in terms of ergonomy, in terms of technical tools, analog tools, digital tools, etc. Comfort. This is exactly this, what plays a big role in well-being, that you find a place where you feel this comfort on different levels, I would say. We have been working now at home, so you can also see that, you know, home environments typically are more cozy, have more textiles in there, have more ambient light. So this is something that people also would like to transfer and bring to the workplace. And then what I already mentioned is this sense of control. So I'm sort of in control when I come to the office, when I work, and how do I do my work. So to address these needs, me also, like the 2 other experts, I'm an architect by background, so I truly believe in the power of place, and that actually the place where you work at will have a big impact on how you do your work. And what we can see is that the attention on places has really grown. You know, a lot of CEOs now are really thinking about how can I provide a compelling space to attract and to engage people in this war of talents. So it's really become a priority that needs to be addressed. And those spaces need to be dynamic, energizing, inspiring, and productive. And they need to be social hubs where you can provide the sense of belonging. And they also typically need to be able to foster hybrid collaboration. So now this was sort of the theoretical part, but now how would this look like in space? And I want to share a concept study that we actually did also in collaboration with Waldner. This is a study that Waldner did on, how is a typical laboratory structured and how this might also change when we think about now the new needs. And the general categories here are all-in-one labs, 3-zone labs where you have those sort of write-up zones. Then the lab cluster and the combi lab, where you have on one side sort of the classic lab in blue, and then in green those special areas, the community areas. And what we do see also in the office space is that those community areas gain not only importance, but also share in the floor plan as a footprint. And then as a third bucket, you have those open labs where you find individual space. And I will talk about these 3 concepts, so where you have like enclosed areas. No, I can't advance. Let me see. So talk about write-ups first. So these places where you, after you sort of do your experiments, you can write up the findings. We need those focus areas, but intentionally we wanted to rethink those and see what is maybe the borderline. How can we reinvent those areas and maybe add more well-being to that and also more functionality. So how we approach this is really using a very typical laboratory floor plan, and then rethink how this could look like in the future. And you can see here now this green infusion on the right-hand side, where we played out some more spatial possibilities. So looking here at this write-up zone, we wanted this not just to be a desk and a seat where someone sits and writes up things, but how can you augment this with new functionality? How can you also, with very little elements, make this sort of a collaborative space, something where you can have different height levels and thereby also different energy levels? And then, in this little corner, maybe I want something more loungy at this point to write things down, but I still have some support. I don't have to balance the laptop on my knees, because sometimes it's about these little tweaks and these little functionalities that actually make a place work or not. You can also see some mobile power here in this middle, so you will not run out of power. One example, here another idea on how this in-between zone can look like. Again, you can have this classic desk typology, but then can you even in this very small footprint provide 2 areas? And those mobile chairs that have an integrated table where you can actually then create a little brainstorm setup with a whiteboard and go beyond just focus work. Here, I know a lot of you will now say, oh my gosh, this is not possible, cushions in the lab and the coffee. But definitely we wanted to really be a bit provocative and just sort of stretch the boundary of what's possible and really focus on where would I like to sit down in the lab. And I think we all went through, a lot of forbidding signs, don't sit here, don't stand there, keep the distance. And I think therefore even more having spaces that are not sterile are really key to foster well-being. So here's sort of a lounge setting that can also be used to collaborate. And yeah, here a more active setup where it's truly meant to be something that's active and on a higher level where it's easy to stand up, write something on the wall. And a really important aspect also, how do we how are we able, even in a laboratory, to integrate and include someone who is not physically present but wants to join in remotely? So here with this technical integration. Yeah, so overall, what I would like to show is that with this very limited space, just by adding some thoughts in how could the setup be, you can have multiple use cases in there that will provide also space not just to focus, but also to collaborate depending on the use place, and thereby also again fostering the concept of choice and control. Like even if I'm doing individual work, I can also choose to sit on the lounge chair instead. So going to the next one, the community areas, you can see on the left side the setup, how it was in this laboratory with these enclosed spaces for 3 people each. We really tried to break that up in a more communal area. And that is something, and in my former life, actually, I remember actually working with Norbert on an incubator where a lot of startups would go to the lab and sort of rent out a laboratory because they were not able to afford their own lab in the beginning. I think this is a concept where we can also learn from the co-working movement, you know, where freelancers, startups like to be in an incubator environment, not only maybe to share the facilities and the equipment that's expensive, but also because they want to learn from each other in terms of business cases maybe, or marketing strategies. So I think this focus on exchange and community area and knowledge transfer will also become more important. And therefore we try to sketch up some ideas on how this could be structured with different modes of collaboration. Here again, something more active. How can this be zoned? It doesn't need to be with a wall, but it can actually be with this storage element where you again have some biophilic elements to foster well-being. You have these room-in-room solutions that are also flexible. And yeah, just another example that you need to think about the acoustics. When you talk about well-being, you need to think about the lighting, you know, that makes a totally different atmosphere. And here also some privacy to create a different sort of atmosphere in this corner. Work cafe is something, again, where we see a strong growing demand. It was a nice to have, and now a lot of corporations are actually thinking about a work cafe, of course, with the focus on the social exchange, but also as a workplace, as one workplace to choose that is also working throughout the workday. And now the last bucket, the individual spaces, you know, how can you rethink those enclosed office spaces where you have classically like 2 or 3 people working side by side, with adding again whiteboards, some areas of regeneration as well. And how can you transform maybe a classic manager office that can only be used by one person into something that, if that person is not present, can also house some collaboration and can be a multi-purpose space. Yeah, and here another example of, you know, do I maybe want to have like some work in the lounge chair and then have a more activated area next to that. Big topic that we see is corporate learning. Why do we want to come to the workplace? Not just to collaborate, to socialize, but also to learn together. Now we're doing another webinar, but I think people also really enjoy coming together physically and to learn together and be able to learn by doing. So that's something you might also think about when planning a new facility. Do you have an area that can also serve as sort of a academy? So these were the examples. Maybe just to wrap up, two thoughts, two trends that we've seen before COVID, but that we feel have become even more important. One is the sense of privacy, to provide that in the workplace. We've all been working at home, and maybe not everyone in such a large home office environment, but at least we were sort of used to not being disturbed by colleagues, when you want to call it like a disruption. And we want to have the possibility to have the same in the office. So how can we provide a privacy or focus work, not just in a single mode, but maybe something, where I can just seclude myself in between meetings and do some emails? Or do I really need a room for 8 hours to get something done? So to again have this choice and control also in these focus areas. And then, is there something in between being in an enclosed space and being in the open, to have this sort of levels of privacy? So when I sit maybe under this awning, I already signal, well, this is sort of by invitation only. When I sit in the open, it's like, hey, do you want to have a chat with me? And then sort of on the other end of the spectrum, the social hub. This is, I think, what we've already seen some nice pictures, these spaces that inspire people, where it's about well-being and where it's about the social exchange. Here, just an example, again, different setups, so you can choose the one that you like. And then also, of course, the sense of biophilia moving into the workplace, and also textile elements or elements that we know from our home, like you were mentioning, how can we bring that also in the office space? And lastly, just a thought, like, how can we enhance those spaces that might look nice and cozy and where you like to hang out? But how can this also do work for you? Like, access to power, little stands for your laptop, knowledge sharing on a screen, bringing in people from remotely to not only have an inspiring space, but also a really well-performing space. So that's from my side, better as possible, and looking forward to the discussion.
David, thanks a lot for these great pictures, these cool concepts, and we had a lot of fun to do these concepts together. That was really great, and I hope for everybody you saw new possibilities, also for boring write-up areas, but also for the community and individual spaces, and also for the global report you showed. And I hope you share the link in the chat, that everybody can download the global report. That would be great. Now we come to the Q&A session, and the first question goes back to Norbert. Norbert, does it take a long time to convince all users of this new work environment? And does this require a special kind of change process, especially with public clients?
It's a little bit different. I think public clients are different to private clients. This is the first what we have learned in the last year, I would say. And this change process is nothing, I think, what could happen in a few weeks or maybe in a few months. This is an extremely long and intensive process, I would say, together with the client, the users, and last but not least, the authority which is giving the money. Especially with public clients, you always have a kind of authority like a ministry or something like that, which is giving them money. This is a long process where you have to convince all people in the process. I think you need a lot of good examples. You need a lot of good pictures, a lot of good arguments. Why this is better, why this is much more better performing than the other solution. And last but not least, you need patience and money because you are spending a lot of time for this. I would say this is not a hobby or something like that. This is our goal to realize, I would say, excellent work environment. But at the end, I think the best solution will be realized. This is what we have learned in the last years.
Thanks a lot, Norbert. So the next question goes to Lena. Lena, what experience do you have in working with architects, but also with clients? In which service phase do you start with your consulting and service?
Yeah, I have a very positive feedback I get from architects and, for example, city development planners. It's like they tell me, actually, they say to me, "Thank you very much, Lena, that you did this analysis before I start to design a new environment, because now I have facts and figures where I can base on and give the persons who give you the money the safety or secure safety of making decisions evidence-based." And we actually run into buildings or the planning of buildings before the service phase 0. So means -1 or -2 or something. That is the moment where we should go into the planning of buildings.
Thanks, Lena. So the next question to you, Devi. What are key spatial measures to foster well-being that organizations are considering at the moment?
Yeah, I would say there is no one size fits all, that's for sure. We do see a growing demand on redefining, rethinking the workplace. It's really on top of people's minds. And at the moment, I would say, yeah, people understand that the office or the workplace should not just be a location to do their work, but it should actually really be a destination where people like to come to. It needs to be an attractor for people to come together and be innovative, because in the end, when we talk about innovation work, this is something where you need this exchange, you need the quick and fast knowledge transfer, you need quick decision making. So I would say overall, you could say that the classic workspace with the table and the chair is still important, but is getting a bit less. And then the focus on the in-between areas, on those collaboration areas, is becoming more important. So those shared concepts where I think pre-COVID we had to do a lot of work on convincing that this might be a good idea to maybe give up some individual spaces in favor of those creative spaces. That's a different discussion now, because I think organizations do see the need for those more creative, inspiring spaces.
Yeah, thanks. And we also see that in projects, also the shared desk or shared rooms, also the shared labs, because the most expensive rooms in the buildings are the labs, and also the lab equipment is very expensive. And we don't have it only with the incubators and accelerators for the startups to share this equipment. Also in the new projects, it's a hot topic, sharing equipment, sharing desks, sharing everything. So also the community things, they are really important. And now a question to the architect Norbert, because when you have big areas and community spaces, and also your projects are showing a maximum of transparency and openness, how do you manage this with fire protection requirements?
Fire protection. Yeah. This is not a funny issue. Yeah, I think it burns different in Berlin than in Hamburg. This is the first thing I had to do. Now, fire protection is something very different because it is regulated very locally. This is the first thing. Something what is working in Berlin could be not always working in Hamburg, for example. But last but not least, all the German, I would say, directive regarding fire protecting are not very open and are not offering a lot of possibilities to realize those kind of open space scenarios. To realize something like the IKS from the Fraunhofer Institute, what I've shown before, I think the only possibility is to use a sprinkler system. This is nothing very common in Germany. It has to do with a lot of issues from the insurance, for example, something like that. But if you're looking into the UK or to US, it's absolutely normal that the lab building is sprinklered. With this kind of, I would say, procedures, you are saving a lot of passive fire protecting message. This is one possible thing, and it's the only way to realize some kind of open space over 3 or 4 floors. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible in Germany. So sprinkler system is, I would say, something very positive for us.
So fire protection, everything is possible, I think. For everything and every space, there is a solution. It depends on the cost and on the investment at the end.
Yeah.
So the next question to you, Lena. Is well-being scoring also applicable to other assets than lab spaces? And if so, are there any differences in the application or scoring?
Yes, you can use this or in other assets, but actually there are regarding every asset class, you will have a different cluster or parameter catalog. But in your class, I mean in your asset class, you have always the same. So we have different scorings for office or for healthcare, or laboratories, for retailing, different scorings. But when you will benchmark your scoring with another asset in your class, you can do this because it's fixed. So yeah, you can benchmark that and you can use it for every asset class.
Thanks, Lena. And now the last question goes to Devi. Devi, why does the topic of well-being gain more importance, especially in the labs? What is your opinion?
I think you know, when you think about scientific work and the projects that Norbert showed, it's all about innovation, right? This is really high knowledge work where you need people who are highly qualified, and here it's all about I would say getting the right talent on board. And for that, we've all heard about the Great Resignation. It's become obvious that people that are not able to sort of attract and also bind their employees to their organization are losing ground. And we saw that, you know, during those times where people were also staying at home, people were losing engagement and were detached from their employer. And that's why we do have this resignation problem. And therefore, I think the right space, and we saw some great examples today, can do a big change in the engagement and the loyalty of employees.
Thanks, Devi. And if there is anybody in the auditorium which has a new project, you are free to contact the experts, and we also can make a network here and try to make something very new and inspiring and collaborative in a science lab. That would be really a cool thing. So thanks a lot to the 3 speakers, to Lena, to Devi, and to Norbert. And I want to look forward to our next Labcafé online. It's on the 4th of May. It's in 3 weeks, and the topic is digital labs and trends to speed up laboratories. And my guest will be Dr. Thorsten Gressling from Bayer Pharmaceutical, Professor Dr. Michelangelo Canzoneri from Merck, and Dr. Simon Bangers from Lab Forward, live from the Digital Lab showroom in Berlin. And this will also be a great session. So register on the website. Thanks a lot for joining and have nice Easter. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.